Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Super Rocketeer development video number 2. The first thing I did this week was I added an effect where if Rocketeer falls for a long period of time, the screen starts to progressively shake, and when he hits the ground, he has a hard landing animation. To better demonstrate this effect, I created this giant gorge. I liked the idea of the camera being able to shake absurd amounts in a hypothetical situation where Rocketeer falls an enormous distance, but eventually I did decide to limit the amount of camera shake that can take place, especially since it could get to seizure-inducing levels. Next, I ended up making a spinning animation whenever Rocketeer boosts upward, but the left and right keys aren't held down. Originally I had it so that animation always plays whenever Rocketeer boosts upward, but it ended up feeling overly eccentric, and it got old pretty fast, so I ended up making it this way. And because I freed up the Z key last week, I was able to make a new kind of jump, specific to when Rocketeer's rolling. I wouldn't call it a long jump, because it actually doesn't go any farther than the regular jump, but it does go faster, and if you hold down the Z key while doing it, it'll auto-jump for you. Again, if you have a limited keyboard input, you might not be able to do this, but I think it's nice that the option's still there. Also, if you rocket boost sideways while doing this, you'll play the same spin animation as before, except horizontally. One thing I've been meaning to do for a while is improve the wall jumping in the game. Before, it was somewhat easy to slip off of walls because the player would want to hold the opposite direction they were facing in order to jump to a parallel wall. This is a problem apparent in most any game with wall jumping, and the solution is usually the same too. What you need to do is create a sort of stickiness for the player so that they can only leave the wall once the threshold has been broken, either by holding the opposite direction for a long enough amount of time, hitting the ground, or hitting the jump key. It took a while, but I managed to do all these things, and it works really well. With these changes in place, I was able to make it so if the player wall jumps while holding the opposite directional button they're facing, they wall jump farther and faster, making wall jumping a lot more expedient. In addition, I changed it so instead of having to hold X and up to wall run, you have to hold Z and up. This simplifies the controls because up until now, wall running was the only movement-based action that required the X key. This way definitely feels a lot more fluid. Another thing I did was I experimented with the idea of a hover ability. I couldn't find any natural way to put this into the control scheme, so right now it's just mapped to the Shift key, but maybe I'll do something with it later. And of course, a large portion of every week entails a lot of work fixing bugs, but I don't usually go into that because most of it's uninteresting. That's it for this week. Hope you've enjoyed and continue to follow development.